so welcome back to the X-Files Revisited, and this time you're on to episode 8 of season 1, and this one is entitled Ice. Now, Brian, we've been hearing this for the past few episodes. This is one of your favourite episodes. So
yeah.
I guess we're going to get to it and figure out how good this one really is. So this one, it feels, just straight off the bat, it feels like a sort of low budget episode, but not in the way it looks or it is. It feels as if they've been told that, you know, they need to curb things, so they've got one location. They've only got 6 actors in total.
Yeah.
So they've had 6 actors, they've got one location, make a story, see what happens, and sometimes the best things occur from being confined within your artistic approach to something, as I think we're going to discuss in this one, because I won't lie, straight off the bat, great episode. Yeah. Really like this one.
It's often the mother of invention, isn't it? When when you're very limited in your resources, that becomes the mother of invention. You're forced to do the best with what you've got. And I think that is absolutely true here with this episode.
Yeah. So we'll just jump straight into the start of this episode, and it opens in Alaska. And we're inside a small building there, and it's in complete disarray. We open up on a dog that's sort of rooting around in the rubbish, which is very similar to a movie that this episode seems to be based almost upon, The Thing, because that opens up with the husky, the dog rushing through the sort of snow.
It's a definite reference. It's a definite reference.
Oh, absolutely. And then you have a man who's obviously been through something traumatic, and he goes over to a camera and says the delightful phrase, "We are not who we are."
Yeah.
And then another guy appears, and the two guys struggle, and they pull guns on each other. It's a Mexican standoff, they're holding it, and then they kind of lower their guns, and you're like, okay, this seems to be calming down, this is quite good, but they're mimicking each other the full time. And one of the guys puts the guns to his head, the other guy does the same. You see the outside of the shack and you hear 2 gunshots. And then the theme music starts. Yeah. I mean, what a hook straight from the start. Yeah.
Absolutely
so
brilliant
many
opening.
questions.
Yeah. It's just really claustrophobic, kind of tense opening, but just really intriguing. You want to know what is happening here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because you know it's a place where you can't survive outside the sort of shack that they're in. It's the place that they're in. This is their home. It's wrecked completely. These guys are running about. One of the guys is bare-chested in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness, you know, covered in blood, sweat, whatever. There's a dog just roaming about in this place as well, and you're like, what the hell is going on? What's happened to these guys? And it's one of the best openings in any of the X-Files episodes that we've seen so far.
Definitely, yeah.
So we go to the theme music, and then we go straight into a video of the team in Alaska, and Mulder tells Scully about the guy's scientific drilling through sort of centuries-old ice to find sort of a history of the world, almost. And then we jump to the next video that we've seen the guys actually making where they started to fight. Yeah. And Mulder's like, what happened between video A to video B a week later? Yeah.
Mulder actually doesn't look all that impressed to be going on this assignment. He tells Scully, he drops this line where he says, "Bring your mittens," and then he kind of walks off, and the look on his face is like, I so do not want to be going there right now.
I think he mentions in this about the weather there, so they have a limited time span. They need to get in and out in 3 days, and do whatever they need to do. So you already know that there's a time scale on it. You know that something bad's happened. It's an extreme location, and again, it's just racking up that kind of questions and tension before they even get there.
That's something I find about the script for this episode. There's nothing there in this script that doesn't need to be there. It's all very tightly woven together. It's all really brilliantly edited from a script standpoint. All the pieces of the puzzle feed into that build-up of tension. and that build-up of mystery. And it's just, from a script standpoint, this is an episode that definitely feels like a movie. They could have fleshed this out to a 2-hour movie, and it would have made a brilliant X-Files film.
Mm-hmm. So we're at the airport, and we have the guy, Denny, listening to the game recording, an old game recording, which just tells you everything about that character straight away. Then you have Xander Berkeley turn up as Dr. Hodge. And you've got another person with him, Nancy.
Yeah, played by Felicity Huffman. You don't know Felicity Huffman?
I can't say that I do.
Oh,
no.
Good grief!
I know the name, but
man, she's a fantastic actress. She's done some really great performances in some films, but most people will know her from Desperate Housewives. It's not really a series.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah, not really a series I watch, but I do really appreciate her as an actress. She's a great actress. This was probably the first thing I ever saw her in, to be honest. But I've seen her in films where she's delivered. I know she's got the chops. So, and Xander Berkeley, I like anyway. I'm a fan of Xander Berkeley. I really like him. We both liked his little stint in Terminator 2 on the podcast for that. But yeah, an actor I really like. So, right, if you're going to get just a few actors together for an episode, you're enclosed in one location, you've only got a few actors to work with. They've clearly gone for some really decent actors here, I think.
Yeah, so they've got these guys just standing in the airfield waiting on the pilot to turn up. And what I really like about this scene, and this is definitely on hindsight, because initially when you've got Dr. Hodge asking to see everybody's ID, you're just like, alright, this guy's quite paranoid. But by the end of the episode, everybody's going to be as paranoid as that, if not more so. But they all kind of have a look at each other when he asks to see everybody's ID. You've got the paranoia creeping in at the airfield before things take a turn south, and then you have Bear turn up, the pilot, who I've seen in loads of things as well, and he turns up and he's just carefree, don't care, this is a job, I'm just here to do it. Dr. Hodge turns round, can I see your ID? And he's just like, no, you can't.
Yeah, can I see your credentials? It's like, the only credentials I've got, pal, are that I'm the only person willing to fly you up there. So get your ass on the plane, basically.
It's just a fun little character, just that I don't care who you are, just get your ass on the plane. And then it jumps straight to the sort of Alaskan base, and they're entering into where the scientists have been living for the past so long. And the first thing I noticed about this one was the lighting. The lighting is super creepy, super spooky. It's all kind of haunted house lighting almost. And it looks a step above general TV stuff.
Definitely.
And the X-Files have done that before in previous episodes, and I've no doubt we'll do it in further episodes as well, where it looks cinematic.
Definitely. They just make really good use of their location. I think, like we said before, when you're limited, you're forced to up your game. And I think when you're not dashing about to location to location to location to location, you can afford to spend a couple of days really just getting used to that location, getting to know it from a lighting standpoint, and really getting your setup spot on. So that once those actors have rehearsed and they're on set, you've got nothing else to do. And that clearly shows, I think. Like you say, it's really well lit. It looks beautiful.
One of the characters goes to do something. Mulder stops him and says, no, we need to document everything on the scene straight away. So you've got Scully taking pictures, which has got a nice flash of light, just to make things even more spooky around about the whole place. Mulder explores, and they find the ice in the fridge. Now, this was the only thing in the episode. One of the few things that just kind of niggled me a little bit, because it does a slow zoom onto the ice that just lets you know that there's something in there that's to be taken notice of.
Yeah.
You know, I wish it was just I open the fridge or there's ice, close the door. They don't really mention too much about it. They keep the air of mystery on it, but by having that lingering shot on the ice, you're like, okay, that's got something to do with these guys and what's happened to them.
Yeah, that really doesn't bother me, to be honest. If I'm...
I mean, the episode is still great. It's still a great episode, and it's just a small niggle, but I don't remember this one.
Right. It's just it still sets up the intrigue, though. It's not like with the last episode, Ghost in the Machine, where at the beginning we get that little panel on the computer and the computer says something, and you know right off the bat, right in the introductory scene, this is an AI episode. What we're dealing with here is artificial intelligence. No mystery left. It's not like that with this. We like you say, you get that slow zoom into the ice. Okay, you know this ice has got something to do with what's gone on, but that's it. The question is, what does it have to do with it? So the intrigue is still there, the mystery is still there. So yeah, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a negative at all, because I think this is probably, I can see coming into the season, this is going to be one of the top episodes anyway. That's easy enough. It's just a small quirk that I would maybe, if I had a chance, take out, but it is part and part of the TV, the way they made TV shows then, and the way they made the X-Files as well. That just sort of lingered, but it's not anything that's going to waste the episode, not at all. So the next scene we have is the dog attacking Mulder.
Yeah.
And even though Mulder gets sideblind, doesn't see the dog coming, it just attacks him. Thankfully he's okay. The only person that gets bit is Bear, the pilot, who comes to Mulder's aid.
Well, actually, doesn't the woman also get scratched or bit or something? Or she got his blood on her or something like that? I'm sure there's I think there's
possibly.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's a reference. Oh no, sorry, my mistake. Yeah, scrap that. Edit that out.
No, I'm leaving that in, Brian. You said you were a fan of this episode. So the dog, the only person that gets hurt is Bear, who gets a pretty nasty looking wound, to be fair. And just to show you how much a badass he is, he's just like, give me the stuff, I'm going to clean it and fix it myself. So they have the dog, they start to do an examination of the dog because they sedate it.
Yeah.
And they find these black nodules on the dog.
Yeah.
And kind of like just surmise that it has to be the bubonic plague or something nefarious like that.
But then they see something moving under the skin.
Yeah, which is just
very
creepy.
Good. Yeah, a very good special effect, I must say. I mean, this was 1993 when this was released, and this is a TV special effect. Really well done, and it still holds up. Even now, it still looks very good for a TV special effect.
Yeah, although there's some later on that don't hold up as well. But no, that's an excellent shot. And then we just go straight to Bear tending to his wound in a bathroom or something, and he lifts his arm and he seems to have the black nodules already.
Yeah, it's like instantaneous reaction, isn't it, to getting infected by this thing? Now, if I was to have a niggle about the episode, it would probably be that, just how quickly this thing starts to show symptoms. That being said, you're dealing with something that doesn't really exist, so that they can make up whatever rules they want for it, but you feel like they've kind of got to speed the process along in order to keep the momentum of the episode going. So it doesn't really bother me. It's, it's there, it needs to be there, and why waste time with some other scenes between what we've just seen and then just get there, which is what they do. So it's one of the things I like about the episode, is that it does breeze along really nicely.
Yeah, but you don't really get a passage of time either. So you know that Bear gets attacked, they've sedated the dog, they inspect the dog, they go back to Bear, his wound is now wrapped and tended at that point.
Yeah.
And he feels something under his arm. So you don't know how long he's taken to do that, how long he's been away, or it could have been a period of time before.
It could have been a couple of hours. I reckon it could have been a couple of hours.
It could easily have been. It's just because it's such a short time length of 42 minutes. They need to just hammer the points in. And it's one that I wasn't really hung up on too much.
I'm really stretching here, to be honest. It's like I always feel like I've got to find some of the, if I'm going to have anything to complain about, I'll try and find it. But it's stretching really, just so I've got something to say.
So then you've got Mulder talking to Denny about the satellite picture and the depth of the ice, and the differential between what the scientists actually drilled to what the picture said that the ice was going to be, depth-wise. And Denny mentions that it was a large concave void that they were drilling into, and instantly I'm thinking they've drilled into a UFO. It's got to be. Turns out not to be that, but instantly that's what I'm thinking. They mentioned it's a meteor at that point. Yeah. But still I'm thinking, they've drilled into a UFO.
Yeah. Scully talks about the evidence showing that everyone killed each other or themselves. I can't remember what exactly she said there. That's just my note.
Scully informs everybody that every person had ammonium hydroxide in their system.
Yes.
And Hodge mentions that the human body would naturally burn that up because of the temperature that we run at, so it was impossible. And then that's when Denny comes in and mentions that he's found something in the ice.
Yeah. So that's when they see the parasite?
They just mention, he just mentions that it's strange readings and it's something that's never been found in Earth's atmosphere before. And then they have a look through the telescopic sight thing, the microscope, and they discover this wriggly little worm.
Yeah. I love Bear's questioning of them, because he comes in and he hears them talking about this parasite and this possible infection, and that they might need to quarantine and whatnot. And he's making it so obvious that he's got these spots. He's like, so these spots, you don't think they've got anything to do with it, do you? They're fine, right? If one of us had these spots, he may as well literally just put a neon sign above his head saying, "Hey guys, I've got those black nodules."
And that, along with the fact that he's got a mean sweat going on as well.
He's really looking like a guilty man at this point.
Yeah. But the fact is as well, he's the pilot. He's just there to help them get there. They've got scientists, you've got FBI agents, but he's the one with the most compelling argument to just get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And they're starting to buy it.
You do genuinely feel sorry for this guy, because he's of the group. He's the grunt. He's he's the one. He's the working class of this group. He's just flown them up there. As he says, I was hired to fly you up here and fly you back. So you do feel really sorry for this guy, that he's the first one to kind of bite the dust, so to speak.
So they have a little tete-a-tete, and Scully wants to run tests on everybody, and that's when she brings out the poo jars. First of all, right, this place was trashed. Did those jars survive, or did Scully bring them just in case she needed poo samples?
Well, I think they probably did bring a lot of equipment.
And how much fibre have they been eating, because those jars were pretty big.
But yeah, they were like little poo buckets, weren't they? But I love. There's a line that Mulder drops when he says, "Just to remind everyone, before anyone passes judgment, we are in the Arctic."
That's a while away.
Is that? Oh, that's on the second one, isn't it? That's when they test each other so many times in this episode. Blimey. Good grief.
After the poo jars have been brought out, the pilot storms out. He's just not having this. Why should he be tested? He's perfectly fine. And he leaves, and everybody has a little chit chat and decide that you know what, they can't take a plague back to humanity if there is such a thing. They need to get everybody tested before they can leave, and they want to make sure everybody gives their sample. So when Bear comes back into the room, Mulder has his gun already drawn, and it says to Bear that, you know, we need a sample, we need to test you. Bear's very compliant. He wants to help out. He goes to get his poo jar and promptly smashes it over Mulder's head, thankfully empty.
I'd like to just point out as well that it's actually Scully who rugby tackles the guy to the ground. She kicks ass.
Saving the damsel in distress, Mulder. The guy's about, got to be twice the weight of her, and at least got 2 feet on her, and she takes him down.
If I'm getting into a fight with one of these guys, I can tell you right now, I'd rather fight Mulder than Scully, because I think she would kick my ass.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. They take Bear down, and then they throw him on the table, and they start to see this thing wriggling in his neck. You know, this is truly horrifying. They just cut him open, and it's not as if they're gently digging about in there. You know, they're yanking something out. They've got a good
tugging on that worm, and it's like a piece of elastic that just keeps twanging back into his neck, and it's just disgusting.
Yeah, it's usually in these episodes of the X-Files, it kind of moves away. It doesn't show you things like that. And it doesn't even go in close to it. It stays far enough away, but it's such a disgusting shot. They've got everybody holding Bear down, and this doctor, who seems to be using all his physical energy to just pull this thing out. And
it's the way Bear's moaning as well. He's got this moan, like you literally feel that this guy is in agony. Like I say,
and you had no idea what they were going to pull out of his neck either.
It's good performances all round. Everyone is just really delivering on the performance side of things, and it's just as well when Xander Berkeley's character finally pulls the worm from his neck, and it's kind of wriggling about, and you see it kind of spray this like jet black ink all over him, which we later learn is like a defense mechanism that is probably the thing that killed Bear. But it's just, the whole thing, from a special effects standpoint, from the performance standpoint, from the way that it's just directed, it's just really grade A television.
Oh, absolutely. It's fantastic, and it's a memorable scene within the episode, of a great episode. And then you've got Mulder contacting Doolittle Airfield, and the 3 days that they had to do their mission has just turned into a matter of hours that they've got now, and he just asks if Bear's going to be okay to fly them out, and Bear is dead, like he said, because of the poison. So Scully, I think, has examined the bodies of the scientists that were there previously, and has a worm in a jar, and says it's kind of similar to a tapeworm, and all the dead bodies had them. And the worms make you more violent because they're feeding off something a chemical that violence.
Acetylcholine, So
yes,
it's all to do with the hypothalamus, and just how basically because the acetylcholine increases aggression. They reckon that's the link basically. So when this worm kind of feeds off that, it heightens the aggression in the human person that has been taken over by it.
And when it mentions hypothalamus in this movie, or in this show, it just gave me flashbacks to The Relic, because was that not what that was after as well?
Yes. Although The Relic came much after this, actually, a few years certainly did. After this. Yeah. So
just showing you that the X-Files is setting trends.
Definitely, yeah. It's definitely an influential show. There's no doubt about that.
So Scully's double checking the bodies. Mulder comes in, and Mulder tells Scully that they need to keep the worm alive because it's an alien. And Scully outlines the threat that this thing has to humanity, and how much that outweighs Mulder's need to prove that aliens actually exist.
Yeah, because this is his proof of life on other planets. So to him, it's kind of his holy grail in many ways. But she's basically saying, you know what, the risk is just too much. We need to kill it. We need to find out the best way to kill it and get rid of it. but obviously they get into a heated discussion, which kind of sets off the paranoia levels on the rest of the team. So
yeah, this is where the paranoia really kicks in the episode. So you see the scientists outside the room, the three of them, and it pretty much comes across as three kids listening to their parents fight. You know, and they can hear like the argument set in, and they start to talk about how the worm makes people more aggressive, more argumentative.
Yeah.
And they mentioned that Scully was sprayed with blood earlier in the episode, and that she could possibly be infected. So the three scientists almost confront Mulder and Scully.
But they always make sure, though, that nearly every character at some point is a suspect. Because when Xander Berkeley's character points out that that Scully was sprayed with the blood, Felicity Huffman's character says, "Well, you were sprayed too." So it's like right there, you drop that line of dialogue, and it's like literally could be anyone. Maybe Scully is infected. Maybe Berkeley is infected. So yeah, are Mulder and Scully arguing because they have a genuine difference of opinion? Or is one of them infected, and that's causing their aggression level to be heightened?
Yeah. So the three scientists come in and pretty much just niggle at Scully to try and get a rise out of her. And she, you know,
she's like,
lives
what?
up to that.
She's like, what the hell are you trying to say?
So Hodge decides that everybody needs to be examined. And Scully turns round and just says that everybody needs to be examined in front of everybody else.
Yeah.
Which gets us to the strip-off scene. And the line that Mulder says, you know, before anyone passes judgment, may I remind you that we are in the artist. You know? Which we've seen him do before. He injects humour into these really tense sequences. You know, we've seen it before in Deep Throat when they get pulled over in the car and Mulder cracks a joke. We've seen this kind of behaviour before, and it's almost like a defence mechanism to put everybody else at ease.
Yeah, definitely.
So they do the inspection, they all check each other, everybody's clear of these black nodules that they're looking for.
And you're thinking as a member of the audience, while this is going on and they're searching for these black spots, you're thinking exactly what Mulder tells Scully in just a few moments, which is, hey...
Well, Scully says, well, at least everyone is okay.
Yeah. And Mulder's like, well, remember, the spots on the dog went away. And that's what I was thinking when they're all checking each other over. I'm like, this is a bit pointless because the spots on the dog went away. So why, even if you're checking for spots, it doesn't matter. They could have had them and they've gone. But it's good.
I had forgot about that.
Right. Okay.
So when Mulder brings that back up again, I was like, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Great. It could be any of them again.
Yeah.
And it's just the look that Scully gives him when he says that, as if just to say, like, you fucker, why did you have to?
It's like, I was going to sleep well tonight, but now I'm boarding my door. So I love this moment, actually. We get a brief glimpse into everyone's bedroom. And let's
start with Scully. So she walks in the room, and at first she just kind of like potters about. She looks at a little thing, she looks at a photo frame, she looks at a chest of drawers, things on top of it, and then she just drags that right in front of the door and just sits down. And I was like, yep, here we go.
Yeah.
So who else did we visit as well?
So basically I wrote, Scully blocks a door, Denny listens to his tapes, Hodge...
Standing at the door.
Yeah. Hodge makes a list. He's the one who, rather than getting all freaked out and stuff, he tries to be rational about it all, sit down and do a bit of detective work. Mm-hmm. Poor Felicity Huffman just kind of lies there crying. They don't give her too much to do. They just make her cry. But it does feed into your expectations. They make her out to be the weaker one, the one who's just going to crumble under all the pressure, I guess, which makes you suspect her least. So I think that's very purposeful. And then Mulder basically just sits by his gun with his shirt off.
I took it as Mulder just went to sleep. Like, I literally took it as he just was like the only one that's like, I'm getting rest here. You know, the worst thing we can do is all stay like up, so the gun is close by hand, and he's the only one at rest, because I feel as if he actually started
but he does look at that door though. You never see him lie down. He puts the door on his bedside table. Sorry, he puts the gun on his bedside table, and then he looks over at the door. So clearly he may go to sleep, but he ain't getting a restful night.
But then Mulder he startles awake.
Yeah. So he's had a nightmare, which is, my point exactly. Yeah. He wakes up
and I thought he was going to call out the name of his sister or something for a moment. I thought they were going to come back to that. But you hear is it a door going?
Yeah.
And he goes out to explore to see what's going on, and he's walking about with his gun, and he notices some blood dripping out of a fridge. And he goes over, opens it, and Denny's body falls out on top of him, just in time for everybody else in the building to rush out and see this dead body, and naturally assume that Mulder has just killed him.
Yeah. Poor Denny. Out of all the characters, I was kind of hoping he'd be the one that would survive. He's basically the nice guy, isn't he? But yeah, he cops it. We don't see who did it, how it was done.
Yeah, but this was probably one of my favourite scenes, right, which starts from here.
Definitely.
You've got things just amplify exponentially when you have Mulder who suspects everybody and everybody who suspects Mulder.
Yeah.
And it gets very quickly of two guns being pulled and partner versus partner.
Yeah, a lot of shouting.
Screams. Yeah, Mulder screams at Scully. And it's such an impactful scene. You're just like, wow, what's going to happen? I mean, they're not going to shoot each other. But still, you're just like, wow, what a super tense scene.
But it's just that line that Scully drops as well. Mulder, you may not be who you are. And it's like, straight away, right, again, we're brought back to this idea that actually we could have the rug pulled from under us. Mulder could be infected.
And it's, that line seems to convince Mulder to give up his gun, because the next scene he's getting put in a room, and another line that he just knocks out the park is, "In here, I'll be safer than you," as the door's getting closed on him. Which I like that. There's so many lines in this episode that I just really liked, and that was one of them. So this is one of the strange sequences for me. Scully locks the door. She's a little bit duplicitous about it. She doesn't know if she wants to or not, but she locks Mulder in it, and then she goes back into the room, and two of the scientists are sleeping just on desks in the middle of the room. And she takes the chance to walk up and check Nancy in the back of the neck just to see if she's okay. Doesn't quite manage to do it, but she's starting to take her hair out of the way before Hodge stops her.
Yeah.
Which, if only Hodge had let her finish what she'd started, we would have finished this episode a lot quicker than we did.
Yeah.
And that's when Hodge says to Scully about she's the only one with the gun.
Yeah, so she discards the ammo. She takes the ammo out of the gun, throws it out, which...
Even though it makes sense, you're still like, oh, don't do that.
It's like, now you can't protect yourself. So, but we've seen before, Scully's a hard case, so if anyone's going to survive in this, it's going to be her.
Oh yeah.
But so Scully attempts to send a distress call, and actually, just before that, there's a little bit of dialogue between the three of them. So you've got Hodge, you've got the Felicity Huffman character. I can't remember her name. Is it Nancy? That's it. So you got Hodge, Nancy, and Scully. And Hodge basically says, now's not the time for the three of us to start turning on each other. And it's like already in his mind, Mulder's gone.
Yeah.
And Scully's very quick to say there's 4 of us. There is still 4 of us, and if Mulder's infected, he needs help. So it kind of it shows what a bit of a heartless kind of guy Hodge is. He's more of a pragmatist. He's very kind of self-preservation.
Yep.
Very much a scientist, I think. To run the risk of insulting many scientists, but
So Hodge asks Nancy to do a job, and she messes it up, which gets him angry, which leads you to, is he the one that's infected?
yeah,
But all through this episode, and again on hindsight, they're just surmising that the worm makes you angry because of what happened to the guys. But what we've seen in this episode is Nancy being very emotionally shaken. When they go to their bed, she's lying in her bed crying. When she's doing her job, she does it wrong and she gets upset. She doesn't get angry, she gets emotional.
yeah.
You know, so they could have made the wrong assumption about the worm.
Yeah, I think it's more an anxiety kind of thing, and I think with Nancy it's maybe a passive aggression, and I think because
it could be a case of in men aggravates the testosterone and creates an angry person. In the women, it affects the estrogen and makes them more emotional.
But the thing is, does she get that blood sample wrong because she's tired? It's a genuine mistake, or does she actually do it on purpose to sabotage Hodge's work so that he doesn't find out who the infected is? So, you know, you could look at it as she's not really in control, or you can look at it actually she's very premeditated and she's very manipulative. I think we do see quite a bit of manipulation coming from her in many scenes, like especially towards the end here. I mean, when Scully goes in to see Mulder a little later on, she whispers some words into Hodge's ears that are specifically designed to manipulate the situation.
But in this case, it backfires on her because the mistake that she made gives everybody else an opportunity to find the cure, which Scully does by looking through the microscope again, and she sees that when 2 worms are in the same host, they attack each other and somehow they both die.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing that's because of the poison that they spit out. So maybe it's like a bee kind of thing. So, you know, when a bee stings, it kills itself. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical, but it's there. You know, bees kill themselves when they attack, and maybe this is a similar thing. So when these worms attack each other, because they're not meant to live in close proximity to one another, so when they attack, they end up killing themselves.
So when this episode came out in 1993, the Thing had already built up a sort of... It'd been 10 years since the Thing had come out, and people had probably seen the Thing, those who were watching the X-Files anyway, and probably loved it as well. So you have this scene next where they're putting the worm into the dog's ear. And it's in the cage, and I just kept having flashbacks to the Thing, where that scene with the dog in the cage, and I'm like, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
So it's played, in this case, it played on my subversions of that movie. And although nothing really happens, for a moment I was still wound up and tense as to what could happen.
Yeah.
Obviously it's TV, the head's not going to split open and vines are going to come out.
But we did see some dodgy stuff getting ripped out of a guy's neck, so there was that moment of they could show us anything here right now, to be honest.
So I mean, I know it's just that when you're watching the episode, it seems fairly, that's what the dog's there for. They're going to test it on a non-human subject to see if it works, but I did have that fear that it was going to do something out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
You know, which is it's good. So like you said earlier on, Scully goes to Mulder to convince him to take a worm in the ear voluntarily.
Yeah. Hey Mulder, I know you don't think you've got one in you anyway, but can we put one in you just to make sure?
Yeah. Which is the thought of that crawling in your ear is horrible. It's like a flashback to Wrath of Khan almost.
I was thinking Wrath of Khan. That's exactly the film that was going through my head.
Yeah, it's horrible, horrible imagery when you think of something like that.
Yeah. So Mulder and Scully check each other over while they're in there.
Well, Scully's talking to Mulder and she says something like, you wouldn't let me check you. And he's like, well, I don't trust them. And he's like, do you trust me? And like, we're both here now. So Scully checks Mulder and sees that he's not infected, but then turns just to walk away. She doesn't think about, oh, I need to prove to him that I'm not infected.
Yeah.
Which is why she gets a fright when he grabs her. But I had no minds that he was going to hurt her. I knew what he was going to do straight away. She has that little look of, is she going to get attacked at this point? But I'm pretty sure she could have defended herself, especially against Mulder.
She'd take Mulder out, no trouble.
So Mulder talks to him, but while this is happening, outside the room you've got Hodge and Nancy talking, and Nancy's whispering away, and she's like, he's going to convince her that he's not infected and doesn't have to take the worm.
Yeah. And
Hodge is just he's already a naturally paranoid person. He's wound up even more. So by the time Mulder and Scully come out the room, Nancy throws Scully into the room and locks the door, and Hodge pins Mulder to the ground.
Yeah.
And they have this really elongated sequence of somebody carrying this worm as it wriggles.
I just love seeing Scully with this huge drill, this metal bit at the end of a drill that looks like it should be being carried by some kind of machine, and she's just picking it up and whacking this lock on the door. She's really hammering into it. Again, you're just kind of sat there thinking, she's just hard as nails. She's the John McClane of the two.
Is it Hodge that has the worm?
Yes.
He's bringing it down.
No, at first, Nancy's got the worm, and she's about to put it in Mulder's ear when Hodge sees the worm wriggling around in the back of her neck. So he pushes her out the way and tells Mulder that it's her, at which point she proper freaks out and starts running around screaming and smashing things. So they unlock Scully. Scully kind of gets out, and the three of them basically chase Nancy down. Nancy gets a shot off on a gun before they bring her down, but thankfully no one gets hurt. Mulder and Scully pin her down, and then Hodge brings the worm and sticks it in her ear. And
Which, it makes you wonder, like, first of all, they didn't secure the weapon that they had, so you see early in the episode Scully bagging the weapon. They didn't secure it. They didn't even attempt to take any of the bullets out of it and separate it. They've just left a loaded weapon lying in a drawer.
I think it just had one left in the barrel, didn't it? Oh, was that...
One's all it takes, Brian.
Well, it is, yeah. I think it's just a lack of thought, but... Yeah,
and then it's got a scene... I think this is away from the base, so you just got to assume that somebody's came and helped them, took them away from the base, made sure everything's okay. You get Hodge saying that Nancy's fine now, and then you get Mulder who wants to go back and dig and research and find his alien, get his proof, proving that everything he's done has been validated, and that's when Hodge just tells him, "Don't you know? The whole place has been burnt down."
Yeah.
Much to Mulder's shock and horror.
Yeah, some government guys came in and just basically torched the place. But yeah.
And it just ends on one of the best lines that I liked again, and it's Mulder says, "It's still there, Scully. 200,000 years down in the ice," which is great. And then Scully just comes back with, "Leave it there."
Yeah.
Which is a great finish to a great episode. I think this is the best episode so far. It is a pinpoint, precision TV making, whatever you want to call it, is fantastic. It really carries across the paranoia in this episode it turns friend against friend, where you've got Mully versus Scully, and a really
Mully
emotional,
versus
impactful
Scully. You just said Mully versus Scully.
Where you've got Mulder versus Scully in a really impactful scene, which I think that's a fantastic scene. I love that's the start for me out of this episode, where it's got a few outstanding scenes. That is the resounding memory I get from this one. It's just perfect in every way. It's fantastic. I could quite easily watch this one and repeat. And it's a no-brainer, 5 out of 5.
It is. I have watched this one on repeat. I can't count the times I've seen this episode, to be honest. There's about 6 or 7 episodes from the first season that, when I was in my teenage years, they'd always go on. Every week they were just on kind of constant rotation, and this was one of them. You're definitely going to see this in my top 5 come the end of the first season. What place
I imagine it's going to be there.
Yeah, it's just, even TV nowadays, most TV series that are on TV don't put out an episode as good as this. It's just perfectly pitched, perfectly directed. The performances all around are spot on, and the script is just... It's a perfect script for a 40-minute TV show. You can't really get much better in the script department. It's really tightly written, really tense. Yeah, perfect TV in my mind. 5 out of 5, definitely.
Good, and next up is episode 9, and that is Space. I know zero about this one. Is this a fall from grace after Ice, right?
It's a big step down. It's a big step down. It's very hard to come off the back of Ice, I think. If they'd have done it with Beyond the Sea, which is an episode coming up a few episodes from now, then they'd have done it. You'd have been like, blimey, 2 home runs straight after one another. But I think they probably saw that they had those 2 home runs and thought, you know what, better space them out a bit. I don't remember thinking that much of Space, other than the fact that it's actually quite forgettable. There's one scene in it that I do remember creeping me out, actually, that kind of something to do with this ghostly face, this apparition face that goes over this guy's face. But I remember that creeped me out at the age that I first saw this. But beyond that, I don't think there's much else in the episode of note. But, you know, it's been a while since I've seen it, so who knows? I might get to it and I might completely change my mind.
Well, I have noticed so far that you don't get 2 fantastic episodes together so far. Like, especially after the last 5 out of 5 that we had, which was Squeeze.
Yeah.
It then came Conduit, which was a fairly lacklustre. But who knows if Conduit would have been better if it didn't follow such a great episode. So I'll be interested to check out Space, and just remember for everybody to join back and see us on the next episode of the X-Files Revisited.